Hey everyone, it's Brandy and welcome back to my channel, Brandy Janae's Bookshelf. Today I'm here to go over everything that I read in February. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time trying to introduce this video because I kind of have a lot to talk about. So I'm just going to jump right into the stats to get this video started. In February, I read a total of 57 books. I'm still baffled. But anyway, like I said, 57 books. Over those 57 books, I read 12,837 pages with an average rating of 4.04 stars, and that is including rereads. For the ones that I tracked, I will let you know because I think I have a few or maybe one book that I didn't have a rating or that I didn't re-rate for this reread, so I will mention that as well. And then as far as formatting breakdown as well as a couple of other things, I didn't have any DNFs for the month. 46 of the books that I read were rereads. 13 of them were print books, 42 were ebooks, and then 2 of them were audiobooks. Pretty active reading month for me, especially considering that obviously February is the shortest month of the year. So I wasn't expecting to get through so much, but a lot of that did have to do with rereads. But that's still besides the point. I read a lot more than I was expecting to, and let's just jump into it. Starting off with my rereads, and we're going to actually be starting off with my biggest reread of the month, which is I think what accounted for most of my reading. I did a reread of Skip Beat by Yoshiki Nakamura. I think this is probably like my all-time favorite manga series. Like if I only got to read one manga series ever moving forward, I would most likely pick this one because I can reread this one so many times and not have any issues at all with this. If you guys watched my January wrap up, you will have seen that I did start this reread back in January. I did read the first 3 volumes of this, and that was I think towards the end of the month, and my intention was to only read up to maybe like volume 20 because I was like, I'm gonna spread it out over several months before the next volume comes out, which is volume 46. I kept thinking about it and I was just like, there's literally just 15 more volumes. You've already read this much, you might as well just finish it off. And they were all available from the library. All the ones that well no, 2 of them weren't available from the library, so I just like bought digital copies of those 2, and then I had 2 physical, and then everything else I checked out from the library. Not important for this video, but I read volumes 4 through 45 in this series. So I read 42 volumes of Skip Beat this month. Like I said, accounting for most of my reading, but I did still get through quite a few things outside of that. But I think I will go over ratings very quickly just because these ratings did account for my average rating for this month. So I think I'll go through those. But just a little bit about Skip Beat if you have never heard of or have never read the series and you want a little bit of information. This is following this girl named Kyoko. She ends up moving from her hometown to Tokyo with her childhood best friend so that he can pursue his music career. They leave after like the mandatory years of school, and then after that she's just basically been working different part-time jobs to support him. And at the start of the story, she is going to his workplace to like go bring him a lunch randomly one day, and she ends up finding out that he basically brought her to use as like a maid or someone to take care of him, basically like to make the money so he had a place to stay and things like that. And she is very upset with that. So she vows that she's going to get her revenge against him, and she's going to do that by joining the showbiz world. That's basically the premise or how this story starts. But as we progress through the series, she starts to find herself and find something that she has a passion for, and we get to follow her journey as she grows as a person and as her career goes in ways that she never expected that they would go, or that really no one else expected them to go. Like I said, this is one of my favorite series. This is one that I have been reading since before I even started, like way before I started book 2, before I even knew book 2 was a thing. I was reading this series, but this was a lot of fun. Basically, quickly going through ratings, like I said, volume 4, I gave that one 3.5 stars. Volume 5 got 4.5 stars. Volume 6 got 4 stars. Volume 7 got 4 stars. Volume 8 got 4 stars. Volume 9 got 3.5 stars. Volume 10, 4 stars. Volume 11, 3.5 stars. Volume 12, 4 stars. Volume 13, 4.5 stars. Volume 14, 4 stars. Volume 15, 3.5 stars. Volume 16, 3.5 stars. Volume 17, 3.5 stars. Volume 18, 4.5 stars. Volume 19, 4 stars. Volume 20, 4.5 stars. Volume 21, 4 stars. Volume 22, 4.5 stars. Volume 23, 5 stars. Volume 24, 4.5 stars. Volume 25, 5 stars. Volume 26, 4 stars. Volume 27, 4.5 stars. Volume 28, 5 stars. Volume 29, 5 stars. Volume 30, 4.5 stars. Volume 31, 3.5 stars. Volume 32, 4 stars. Volume 33, 4 stars. Volume 34 is 4 stars. Volume 35 is 3.5 stars. Volume 36, 3.5 stars. Volume 37, 4.5 stars. Volume 38, 3.5 stars. Volume 39, 4.5 stars. Volume 40, 4.5 stars. Volume 41, 4.5 stars. Volume 42, 4.5 stars. Volume 43, 4.5 stars. Volume 44 is 4.5 stars. And then finally, volume 45 was 5 stars. It was a lot of fun rereading those, and I'm glad that I allowed myself to do that, because that was like a lot of mood reading. Because at first, I was, like I said, I was only planning on reading a few, and then all of a sudden I was like, okay, I need to read them all. Okay, and then moving on, that actually was not my only reread. The next rereads that I had was finishing off the reads for the Kate Daniels series. But at the start of the series, Kate Daniels is working as a merc in the Mercenary Guild. And she's kind of just doing odd jobs, trying to stay low-key, basically. But after her guardian ends up getting murdered, she goes to Atlanta to try to solve that murder. And because of that, she ends up getting intertwined with the shapeshifter pack of Atlanta, as well as the necromancers who are called the People. And it's a whole lot of things going on with her, as well as her still trying to hide her magic and who she is and everything along with that. There's a lot of mystery involved in this, as well as the different paranormal aspects. Very fun series and very entertaining. So another one that I really love to reread. I think at this point, this is one of those series that I'm basically rereading once a year if I don't forget, because usually I like randomly get an urge to read it, and then, you know, like I said, I usually binge the whole thing in a week. So started off this month with Iron and Magic, which is the kind of like side story. It takes place in the Kate Daniels world, but this one is following Hugh D'Ambre as well as another group of people. I'm not going to get into this because this could be possible spoilers for the rest of the series. Actually, all of these ended up getting the same rating, so 4 stars for this one. And then I went ahead and moved right over into Magic Triumphs, which is the final book in the main series. This one kind of takes a bit of a turn from the setup of the previous books in the series because of reasons I really can't talk about without spoiling things. So I'm just going to say that this one kind of takes a different approach to things in this one than it had, like I said, than it has in previous books. and this one also ended up getting 4 stars from this reread. And then finally I picked up Blood Heir, which is the spin-off that is following Julie from the main series. And this is taking place, I think, like 10 years after the end of Magic Triumphs. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about this one, not really so much about the plot or anything like that, but I did read this one, I think, in 2020. Yeah, I just double checked. This one did come out in 2020, so that's when I originally read this one. And I think when I had read it the first time, I hadn't done a reread right before this one, so everything just seemed a little bit disconnected, especially because of the big time jump after the last book in the series to this one. And I did still feel like things felt a little separated because of that huge time jump, and our main character has been separated from all of these characters she's reintroduced to for at least 10 years. No one really knows who she is except for a few people, but I felt like I got a little bit more out of this reading it so close to the rest of the series. I'm looking forward to reading more in this world because obviously there's a lot more going on that we aren't able to explore because our main character just came back and she's just like getting back into things, and I don't know how to explain it. But I did enjoy this one, I feel like, a little bit more than I did the first time around reading it. But this one ended up getting 4 stars around this time as well. Moving on to the next book, I did have one other reread that I wanted to mention, which is Written and Read by Anne Bishop. Honestly, this one kind of happened out of nowhere, and this is actually the reread that I decided not to rate this time around. Mainly because I originally started this one because I was feeling like super anxious one day at work. I kept getting phone calls. It was kind of like, it was one of those annoying busies because it was just like, it wasn't like calls constantly happening one after another. It was just like I would be on the phone, I would finish up with the call, and like I'll go back to being available, and maybe like 5 seconds later, or I open up a book or try to listen to something or start watching something, and as soon as I did that, then another call will come in. And they got to a point where I was just like, okay, I don't want to keep trying to read or do whatever, do something else, because literally every time I try to start, I get a call. But then I started feeling super anxious, and I was like, I need something to do, something to occupy my mind while I'm waiting on the next phone call. And I just decided to put this on randomly, and it wasn't going to be a full reread. I was just like, I'll listen to this until I'm feeling a little bit better, and then I'll go back into something that's on my TBR for the month. Then it ended up with me finishing off the book and eventually moving on to something else. But I completely forgot that a new book in the world was set to come out in March. So don't be surprised when you see more of this reread. I feel like at this point I probably shouldn't even talk about it like description wise, because at this point, at least since the first time I read it, I think back in 2019, I have reread this entire series every single year. I went and looked at it. I think I read it twice actually the year that I first read it, and then every year since then. It's another one that's like a yearly reread for me. So I feel like I should just stop mentioning it at this point. If you guys don't want me to like talk about these things that I tend to read every year, let me know, because I can skip past this. I could save both of us some time. But this is following a blood prophet who escapes captivity, finds her way to the lakeside courtyard, which is run by the others, which are pretty much the supernatural creatures of this world. They end up taking her in, and is pretty much following the consequences of that, and how that changes not only the others but the rest of the world as well. So that's a pretty simplified explanation, but I feel like that is as concise as I can get it. Did not give this a new rating. Okay, so that was actually the last of the rereads. So now let's go ahead and move over into everything that I rated, and we're going to be starting with my lowest rated as always, and that actually was City of Glass by Cassandra Clare, which is book 3 in the Mortal Instrument series. In this book, Clary is determined to find a cure for her mother, even if that means traveling to the City of Glass, which by law she is kind of banned from going to. And of course, Clary being Clary, she doesn't accept that. Also, this is mainly like the height slash climax of Valentine's villain story. I have thoughts. For this book, I enjoyed everything but Clary. Clary has been useless since the beginning. Once again, we're in book 3. She still has not gone through any training. She has not tried to train. No one has tried to train her. And then she's constantly like, oh, well, I have this special ability, so I should be able to go wherever I want. It's like, that is not how it works, girl. No. I feel like if you took her out, this probably would have gotten at least a slightly higher rating. Thankfully, I feel like she wasn't as prominent. Even though she was like a central part of the story, she wasn't as like on the page as much, I feel like, as some of the other characters. Still more than I would have liked, because I just don't see the purpose in her character, especially because a lot of this book, especially with her, was her trying to basically wanting to ignore the fact that she believes Jason's her brother because she has feelings for him. And it was just still weird. Like the last book, everything was still weird with that. Other than that, I enjoyed Simon's character. I didn't think I was gonna enjoy him that much, and I feel like he is growing, and especially with the fact that he's kind of letting go of his romantic feelings for Clary, because he realizes that that's not gonna happen. Like, she doesn't feel that way towards him. I feel like because of that, he's growing, and he's gonna become a character that I can see myself enjoying in the future, depending on how the author takes him. But so far in this one, I can see like little inklings of things that I'm enjoying from him, and I can't wait to see how he grows going forward. As far as other characters, Sebastian's whole character, I wasn't really feeling him from the beginning. I think I kind of knew where this was going as soon as he was introduced, because I was just like, he seems a little too interested without trying to look interested. And you know, when they would drop a hint, I was just like, all of these characters are dumb, because it's the only thing that makes sense. But I know that's also like being outside looking in. I just yeah, I did have some feelings about Jay's mainly annoyance, because he felt like he was a certain way, so he's tried to start changing his behavior to fit that. And I was just like, well, what was the purpose behind that? It's just like, I get why it was done, but I just wish that it wasn't. It was just a lot about this that I just found very annoying. And this is like very, I guess, typical YA. I feel like if I had read it when it was coming out, it's probably something that I would have ignored in the past. But it wasn't hidden for me this time around, and it is what it is. I think I said this in my January wrap up, but I'm honestly just reading this to get through it, to get to the other parts of the series, because I am one of those people that feel like I need to read the original stuff, or like read it in order basically. So yeah, not my favorite. I'm not really looking forward to the second half of the series, but I am taking a break from the Mortal Instruments for the Infernal Devices in March. So hopefully that goes a little bit better. I don't really know. I haven't really seen too many people talking about that, but it has to be better than this. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, 2.5 stars for this one, unfortunately. All right, so moving on to my next section, which I'm pretty sure is going to be the biggest of all. That is my 3-star section, and we're going to be starting off with A Blaze So Black by L.L. McKinney. This is an urban fantasy Alice in Wonderland retelling, and in this one, after nearly being killed by a nightmare, Alice is trained to be able to kill them, and after she completes her training, she travels into another realm called Wonderland so that she can kill these nightmares before they like travel over to the human realm. However, when her mentor ends up getting poisoned, she ends up having to travel further and deeper into Wonderland than she has ever gone to try to find a cure for him. But that's pretty much what the majority of this first book is following. Going into this, I was a little skeptical, but I was also hoping to love this one because I am always trying to support Black authors. I was mostly wary about this because of the premise. I've said this multiple times, but I did not enjoy Alice in Wonderland, and I think partially a lot of that aspect of the story was what hindered me from enjoying it. I get you need to have some of that whimsy in there, but it just didn't fit, or I just didn't enjoy it, I should say. I don't want to say it didn't fit, but I did not enjoy those aspects of it. And also I think that because I'm not the target audience for this didn't appease what I was hoping to get from it. One of my biggest concerns or issues that I had with this was Alice. Anytime anything happened, or almost like the majority of the book, she was just like, oh, this is my fault, this is my fault, because she didn't do one thing, or she was too scared to do something. She was like, everything's my fault, everyone's in trouble because of me, it's my fault, it's my fault. And I was just like, girl, how much is it supposed to be your fault? Like, you can't be at fault for everything. Like, this person deceived you, so it's your fault. Like, that's literally their purpose. And it was very annoying. I feel like that's gonna be a term for me this month. It's just, I found that very annoying, because I'm just like, I get you're feeling guilty, but everything isn't your fault. Like, you shouldn't have been out on your own doing certain things and expect it to be perfect at everything when you've only been doing this for months. Yes, you have this affinity for it, but you aren't perfect. Another thing, like her whole mom situation, it was weird because I was listening to it on audio. So it was just like, her mom's purpose was only to be there to remind her, or remind the reader, that she had an adult that's like, you need to be at home. But her mom was never really this. She was there one time, I think she was like actually at home, and our main character had to sneak out. But other than that, it was a typical YA absent parent type of thing, and I wasn't feeling that. I was like, I think really disappointed, because even before that, it was just like her father died, so her mom was just like really absent in her life. She was there, but she wasn't taking care of the house, she wasn't doing things or making sure her daughter was okay. And now she's trying to like get back to that point, and all she was just like, oh, I'm just gonna fuss and fuss and fuss, but you keep telling me everything's okay, so we're gonna leave it at that, but next time you need to be in the house, you know, things like that. And I was just like, I felt like it was very superficial. It wasn't ever like her mom was really trying to figure out what was going on and make sure that everything's okay, because she's just like, oh yeah, I'm going out to your aunt's to go check on these people. But you know, I feel like most black moms like, okay, well, you've been running around not doing what you need to do, you're gonna come with me. I get that the story wouldn't work if that's the case, but like little things like that, I feel like the way that her mom is portrayed, she didn't always follow through on those actions. So that's what I mean by like very superficial in those terms of like being being the present caring parent that she's meant out to be. So unfortunately, I didn't enjoy this as much as I wanted to, is basically what I'm trying to say. I think I'm interested enough to want to continue on with the series. I'm pretty sure that the library, if nothing else, has audiobooks of all of the rest of the books that are out in the series, so I can check that out from there, just to, I guess, get a feel for the rest of the series, because some things happen. Obviously, some things were left unanswered, and I want to know how that goes. That's usually how I am. I just know for sure that I probably won't be as motivated to pick this up quickly as some other things that I have, especially physical things on my shelves. But I'm glad that I did finally read this and get this off my TBR. So there's that. Like I said, this one got 3 stars. The next 3 things that I have to talk about are mangas. The next one that I have is The Witch and the Beast Volume 1 by Kosuke Satake. So this one is following 2 characters, Guido and Azhav. I'm probably saying those wrong, but I am doing my best, so sorry about that. But these are 2 mysterious people who randomly show up to this town where this witch is being praised as a hero, but they know the true nature of witches, and they're there to figure out what's going on and to kind of take this witch down, long story short, and we're following the process of that. However, I do feel like this first volume was a bit messy in terms of setting up the plot and getting a clear understanding of what's going on. Like, I think by the end of it, I kind of got a general feel for what the premise that is going to carry the story forward. This is one of those stories where you're kind of just thrown in and you have to figure things out as you go. And I think on one hand it could be, or it was kind of interesting for that aspect of it, but there was just so much about this world that I feel like you need to understand that it's not given in this first volume. I think based off volume 1 I got a decent idea of what's going on and what is the driving force, like I said, of the story. But there were just so many unanswered questions about like the magic system and how certain things got set up, which I'm hoping are explored later on in the series. It's really hard to judge like a manga series, especially a brand new one, new author, everything like that, based on a single volume set up almost like episodes of things. It's hard to like get, you know, an overall storyline from that. This one only got 3 stars. I feel like it had a decent start, but there was just a lot more that I was hoping to get from it that I just didn't with this first one. And I do plan on continuing on with the series as of right now. Like I said, I do have volume 2, so I will be reading that one. And depending on how that one goes, but most likely I will be picking up more from the series, probably no time soon. So maybe I can see if the library has copies I can check out for now until I'm ready to pick up more. If not, then I'll just have to wait till whenever I pick up more, because I have tons of other things I can read for now. But as of right now, this one, it only got 3 stars, but it wasn't a bad read. It was just kind of, you know, in the middle for a start of a story. Okay, so the next 2 I'm gonna kind of probably talk about very quickly together, because both of these are the ones that are in a Manga Spice Cafe box. I have Grand Guignol Orchestra Volume 1 by Kaori Yuki, and then Sankaria Volume 1 by Mitsuri Hattori. So starting off with Grand Guignol Orchestra Volume 1. This one is following a traveling orchestra. They're said to be the ones that are playing things that no one else is playing. It almost makes it seem like they're like this illegal orchestra, but they're like official. I don't know, it's weird. But long story short, in this world zombies exist. They're actually infected with what is called the Guignol virus, which is where this comes in, and that virus ends up turning them into zombies. So the first half of this volume, we're following this orchestra as they're traveling to this remote town to go and play at this new place. There's a little bit of a mystery going on at this location. There was this attack by a bunch of people that were infected by the Guignol virus, and as a result of that, all of the kids in this town have died, and this orchestra is going there for a specific reason, which isn't really revealed until almost when they're about to leave this town. And we're spending time with them figuring out what actually is going on there, and a little bit more mysteries at this place. And then after that, we're following them as they're traveling to their next location that they're supposed to be playing out, and what's going to happen or what's happening before they even get to that place. It is another one that has an interesting premise. I found it enjoyable for the most part, but I found like there was this edge of comedy that was overriding a lot of this. There were some very serious moments, and I found that I enjoyed reading those moments more than having the comedic take over the majority of this. I just felt like it took something away from the darkness of the story that I was hoping to get based off the cover and what I read in the description. However, with that being said, I am still interested in continuing on with the series. Hopefully the library has them, since it is an older series, because there were some things that were brought up throughout this first volume that I'm interested in seeing how it continues to play out as the series continues. But for now, I don't plan on collecting physical copies. I just would like to read more in the series. So depending on how this goes, I will be reading more of this. And then moving on to Sankaria Volume 1 by Mitsuri Hattori. This one is following this boy named Chihiro Furuya, who has pretty much been obsessed with zombies all of his life, or for as long as he can remember. And it's like taken a step further after his pet cat dies, and he finds this book that has like this potion of resurrection pretty much, and he's determined to figure out the right mix of ingredients so that he's able to bring his cat back to life. But then one day this girl ends up stumbling upon him, and according to the back of this, it says she agrees or suggests that she work as his test subject, but that is not actually how this ends up going. But there are a lot of different aspects of this that I was not feeling, and I don't know how that's planning on being handled, or if it's even going to be approached again. But just as like a trigger warning or content warning, just in case you guys would like to be aware of that, if you're curious about this and you just, I don't know, I figure it's best to let you guys be aware of that. So the main first thing, and I did touch on this in my review section for Manga Spice Cafe, but I'm gonna like shorten it up here so that it's not too much repeating in that. But the first thing that's really brought up is the girls. Her name is actually like Sanka Ria. I think Ria is her first name, Sanka is the last name, and we touch on her home life and how abusive it is. We find out because I think she like leaves home to come like release all of her feelings and everything like that. And basically we find out that like every year, at least that's what it seems like. I'm not sure if it happens more often or not, but at least every year this girl father takes pictures of her naked, saying that it's like to track her progress and growth and things like that. Very strange, and obviously not something that's normal. And we even get to see at some point that he has like this big portrait of her like naked above his desk in his office. It's just like very not okay, and I didn't understand. Like I completely understood the fact that we needed to have like a reason for her to be so unhappy with her home life that she feels like she has no other escape but to have this unlikely thing happen to her in order for her to be happy. So I understand having that reasoning, but I didn't understand why it needed to be like on the page. I guess like she mentioned, like she said it, the boy hears her, but then to go even further and have her there, like have that displayed, and seeing how abusive her father is and how manipulative he tries to be, and like in terms of controlling who she can talk to, what she can do, where she can go, things like that. And having another parent in her life, or at least on the page, show up and not try to stop this at all. It was just very, like, it rubbed me the wrong way, and I literally almost stopped there. Like, I was reading the rest of this like scrunch face. Another thing that really disturbed me about this was that it was flirting with the idea of like almost like a romantic relationship being hinted at with the guy's cousin. She comes over to his school to like say something to him, I think about coming to pick up movies or something, and she kind of like flips her skirt up at him, and I was just like, that's really weird. And she does a lot of things that it almost seems like they're dating. It's just like very strange how it was set up to almost like flirt with the idea, and I feel like it was used as a moment to over sexualize the girls in this, and I just didn't understand that. All of those aspects rubbed me the wrong way, and because of that I don't know if I want to continue on with the series, because I don't want to support these things continuing to happen. So I have to think a lot about this one. Maybe I could see if the library has it, to see if I would want to read that, because other than those like very glaring things that I just really did not mesh well with, I think the actual story as far as the zombies and how things are going to be handled with that, I think those aspects of the story could be very interesting because of like just what happened so far in this one. I think that those parts could be interesting. However, all of the like those things that I pointed out, I'm just not sure I can get with that, and that I feel like is a big enough reason for me to not continue on with this. So I'll have to see. As of right now, I don't plan on spending money on this series. Like I said, I can check to see if the library has it, to see if it continues on in volume 2, then it would obviously continue on with the rest of the series, however long this is, and I just can't get behind that. So I'll have to see how that goes, and I will let you guys know, obviously, if that's the case. But as of right now, this got 3 stars, putting it through call out. Okay, moving over into some of my 3.5 star reads. And I had a few of these as well. So the first one that I have to talk about is The Wrath in the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh. This one follows this 16-year-old girl named Shahrazad. In this world, there is this boy king named Khalil who takes a new bride every night, and then the next morning that bride is murdered. But after her best friend is one of those girls who is chosen to be a bride and then obviously sacrificed the next day, Shahrazad decides that she's going to volunteer to become the next bride so that she can get her revenge by killing this king. However, when she gets there, she ends up realizing that she has to survive at least one night so that she can plan out her revenge enough to go through with it. And she decides to do this by telling him stories, and the story kind of just takes off from there. This one I was kind of on the fence about by the time that I finished, and I think a lot of that had to do with the romance. I just didn't fully believe it by the end of it, and I think that was the thing that this was pitched for, or at least the people that I saw that fell in love with it, that was just like the thing that everyone was just like, the romance, the romance, the romance. And I was just like, I'm not buying it by the end of it, probably because I feel like the characters, they didn't really spend too much time together, and then when they did, it wasn't like, most of the stuff wasn't about connection, it was just like survival type of thing. It took a bit to get into the story. It was a bit slow going in the beginning, especially because we have to like get introduced into the world while the character is trying to like fight for her survival pretty much. And it took a minute to like fully grasp, or not fully grasp, but like for me personally to get into the story. So this one ended up getting 3.5 stars. It is definitely one that I will be continuing on with. One, because it's a duology, it's only one more book, and then 2, left off very open-ended, and I need to know what happens, like how this ends, obviously. So I will be finishing off the last one, which I think is The Rose and the Dagger. The next one that I have to talk about is Haikyuu Volume 1 by Haruchi Furudati. In this one, we're following this character named Shoyo Hanata, who quickly becomes obsessed with volleyball after he sees this game playing out on like this TV randomly one day. From that moment on, he does everything that he possibly can to learn how to play volleyball and tries to create a club so he has a team to play on at his middle school. However, things don't go exactly as he plans them to, and when he finally has enough people to play on it, like play an actual game, he ends up playing his first and last game at this tournament because the team he's on loses, and he's determined to go to high school, have a fresh start, and get to be on a new team, you know, with actual players and things like that. But once he gets there, he finds out that one of the guys that was on the team that he lost to is actually his new teammate, and they have to learn how to work together in order to better each other as well as the team going forward. So this one is another one that I feel like it has a lot of good aspects, but like I said, wrong time for me to personally try to read this. And I think I left off on kind of a cliffhanger with this volume because it was like meant to be like, okay, it's time for the next one. But I can tell that I wasn't really feeling it, because usually I'm like, okay, especially if I have it, I'm like, I'm ready to start this now, and I just wasn't really that curious about it at the moment. So I'll find that out at some point. I'm kind of on the fence with this one as well, because some of the characters, I just don't know how they're going to fit into the team, especially with their personalities and how serious some other players are. It's just very strange, and I don't know how it's going to go. But like I said, this is one that I will be coming back to later on whenever I feel like I'm in the mood. We'll see how that goes, but for now this one got 3.5 stars. And then the last book that's in my 3-star section is The Love Con by Sarisa Glass. This is actually another one that was in my 12 must reads of the year. So I was really happy with the fact that I was able to knock out 2 in February, especially because I didn't finish anything in January. In this one, we're following this character named Kenya Davenport, who has just made it into the final round of this cosplay competition. He's kind of put on the spot with the final round where the contestants have to work with someone in their personal lives for the last stage. Kind of under pressure, Kenya decides that she's going to work with her best friend, and because of the comments made by one of the judges, she also states that her best friend is her boyfriend, which obviously, as you could probably expect, is not true. And that's where Cameron Lassiter comes in. He ends up feeling like this is the perfect opportunity to show Kenya that their fake relationship can be a real relationship and that it can actually work, and he's going to do whatever he can to show her that. And we're pretty much just following them as she's going through the final stages, like the final weeks of this competition, and their romance, I guess, blossoming from that. This is another one I've had opinions on. I will admit, normally I don't do this, but I was curious about what people were thinking of this, because I felt like I personally just kind of picked this up on a whim. I skimmed the reviews. I didn't like do a full deep dive reading of all of them that I was like interested in reading. So yeah, I did a little skimming, but not too much. However, unfortunately, I have to agree with the things that I saw as well as like felt while reading. So one of the things is I feel like I can't really like knock it for that, because that's like more content and like character based, and I felt like at least that character was staying true to herself, and that was one of the judges. Like, I almost felt like this is real, and I think I slip into this sometimes when I'm listening to audiobooks. Like, I feel like certain things are actually happening, and I think that was a benefit of this, is that it seemed so real while I was listening to it. Like, I could have turned on the TV and watched everything that was going on. And I found myself very frustrated with one of the judges here, but I have to commend the author because it was so well done and she stuck to her guns, and it was like to the point where I was just like, I wish she would get kicked off this show, and it's like, it's a book, calm down. So there was that, which, like I said, I can't knock it star rating for that. However, when it comes to the romance, which is such a huge part of this book, I was so disappointed because both of our characters have had feelings for each other for a while now. The main male lead, Cameron, he has tried to initiate a relationship, but because he has poor timing, it just didn't work out. However, it has been years since that point, and they have had multiple opportunities to come to each other, at least Cameron, because Cameron's like, look, I've had a thing for her since high school and I'm all about it. And literally it doesn't happen until like the last few pages where they like actually come out and like, this is what I want, this is how I feel, and this is what I want it to be. Why did it take the entire book? Like, don't get me wrong, I don't mind fake dating. Feelings I realized early on, and then obviously miscommunication, which I hate miscommunication anyway. But at this point, I feel like I would have taken that miscommunication over what happened in this, because we had a moment where that could have happened, and you know, our characters believed in each other for the most part, except it was one moment that did happen and she didn't give him a chance to explain himself or like give her like a legit explanation of what happened and why those words sounded how she thought they sounded, and you know, why they actually weren't. So there was a little miscommunication, but not in the terms of them thinking a relationship was somewhere where it wasn't. However, I had a problem with the fact that it literally took until like within the last 10 pages for them to actually talk to you. It might have been even less than that. I feel like it was the end of the competition, when they found out the results, when they finally like addressed the situation, where he finally was like, look, Kenya, what is going on? Why are you saying these things? Like, it doesn't need to be like this. For her to like finally say, okay, well, this is how I feel and this is how I actually want it to be, and her listening to him. And it was just very frustrating, and I was annoyed. They were basically in a relationship without actually discussing their feelings, and I was just like, like especially when both of them had it and they just refused to talk to each other. I didn't understand it, and I was annoyed, and that was a big part of the reason why I couldn't give this a higher rating. There were some other things that I also found a problem with, but a lot of it once again was like content, so I felt bad giving it like a lower rating based off of how the characters are and the author making sure the characters stick to those things. I found myself getting angry, like her parents. Don't get me started on that. I felt like her parents were worse than that judge. That was really stupid. But once again, the author made the characters and she made them stick to, like, made them true to themselves. So I think that was really well done. But overall, this one got 3.5 stars. I'm hoping that when she writes another contemporary romance that she doesn't use the same setup, because I don't like having them go the whole book, especially when they both have feelings for each other before they talk about it at all. Especially the older I get, the more I'm like, let's have a straightforward romance, let's have a talk about it, and let's be mature adults and get somewhere with this. So there's that. 3.5 stars. Not my favorite, but a lot of different, it was a lot of good things, but more bad things than good things, unfortunately. So there's that one. Had to switch out a battery, so sorry if the angle has changed. I'm pretty sure that it has, but we're just gonna go with it. Yeah, so I thought I had more to talk about, but I only have like 3 more books, so we're almost to the end. We are moving on to the 4-star section. Actually didn't have any 5 stars that weren't rereads. So the next one that I have to talk about is Forbidden Promises by Cynthia Williams. We're following this character, India Robidoux, who decides to make a quick stop in her hometown in between jobs. She was just finished touring with a specific company and she's waiting to hear back to audition for this company that's in LA, I think. But once she gets there, she ends up getting roped into staying longer than the few days that she originally planned in order to help out with her brother's political campaign. She was kind of hoping to avoid being home for too long because she was trying to avoid her sister's ex-husband Travis, who she has always been in love with. There's a little bit more going on with that. They actually had a history before her sister ended up getting married to him, and there's a lot more behind the scenes that's going on with that. And she's trying not to like stir the pot basically by not getting too close to him. And we're just following the two of them as they kind of come back to each other within the same social circle and the effects or the consequences of that. I had so many feelings while reading this book. A lot of anger, a lot of confusion, frustration. It just is a lot going on. It was just like almost seemed like anything that could possibly go wrong in these characters' lives, it did. It was so overly dramatic, and then listening to the audiobook, it was just like 10 times the drama, the manipulation that was going on behind the scenes. It was just like so much. And I felt bad for the characters. Like, it was almost kind of hard to root for the characters, but then once you find out more, like more things are revealed, you're like, but that shouldn't have even happened. And it was just like a whole lot going on. Going along with that manipulation that I mentioned, I found it frustrating that the Robidoux, like their father, acted like none of his kids can make their own decisions, because like every step of the way, like everything that kind of went wrong in their lives, he had a hand in making the situation. He was just like, oh well, we're not gonna have this, so you need to do this, or you can't do this, you can't pursue this person because of XYZ and things like that. And like going into this book, I found it hard to root for like the two main characters who were supposed to be together, because it was like this girl and her sister's ex-husband. But as more is revealed, like I mentioned before, I was just like, okay, well, after all of this nonsense, the two of them deserve to be happy. And although the situation that they ended up in wasn't completely happy, like they've been through enough and they deserve, even if they have to like get away from everyone else, they deserve the happiness, because if things would have went the way they wanted them to, the two of them would have been together. So it took a while to get there, but I'm happy that they got their happy ending, and as a result I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of our characters get their happy ending. So of course, based on that, I do plan on reading the rest of these. I think there are at least 3 more books, 2 of them following India's brother and sister, as they get to be with the people that they wanted to be with, or at least finding love. And then I think another book is following her cousin and the guy who her father tried to introduce her to in this book. And I feel like that these are just going to be like very soapy drama, so I need to, like, now knowing that, just be mentally prepared going into that, because I wasn't expecting it going into this. I was just like, there's just so much going on, and I'm just like, chill, just calm down for a second. But now knowing that I can have the right mindset when going into these, and I'm looking forward to continuing on with the Rereads and hopefully all of them being happy. Yeah, there's that one. I don't know if I said already, but this one got 4 stars for me. The next book that I have to talk about is Janine, His True Alpha by Shanice C. Higgins. This one is an urban fantasy, but it's actually like a novella series. This one is following this character named Janine, who has been raised to be a passive and submissive wolf shifter, and to basically put the needs and wants of the elders above everything else. However, once they tell her that she needs to marry this guy slash wolf shifter in order for him to become alpha, she has kind of had enough, and she decides to run away from her pack and go to this other pack to join them, because she's just like, I can't marry this person just because they told me to. And it's pretty much just like following her as she learns what a true pack is, and like getting settled there, and like the consequences of her running away, things along those lines. You can kind of guess. I don't want to get too much into it because it is novellas. I really wish that this had been like a full-length novel instead of a novella, because I felt like there was not enough time to explore everything that I was looking for when it comes to this. I thought that what we had was mostly well done, but there were some things that I felt like were a little lacking when it comes to this, which I really hate to say. I was really excited to have a werewolf story, or really any paranormal story that has to do or centered around Black characters. I think almost everyone, if not everyone in the story, is Black, and I was just like, yes. I really enjoyed the introduction of the town that this takes place in, and how this is all set up by this slave who was left all of this land by an owner. It's still a little, anyway, I enjoyed how like this woman, this Black woman, kind of set up, or was the beginning of this whole town coming to be the way it is. And like I said, how the majority of the characters that we get to see are Black. That was the best part of this for me in general. Also like the little things of how all of them, like wolf shifters, they like the contact, and how all of those little things were. So even if it wasn't like a romantic thing, they were constantly touching, and how Janine felt like that was something that obviously was missing from her pack. And she, although it took a little getting used to for her, she like really appreciated that, because she felt like she was connected with them. I think one thing that I was a little upset with was the fact that because this was so short, it was a lot of moments where instead of being able to be in the moment and feel things with the characters, it was kind of just like telling us this is what happened, this, you know, basically telling without showing. I felt like I was missing certain things. Mainly the romance. It started off really well, but I was also worried while reading, because I was like, we're spending a lot of time on this like very introductory stage where they're kind of filling each other out and kind of getting comfortable with each other, with I can't remember his name, but the guy, when he's like coming to see her at her new workplace. Like little things like that I was really excited for, but I was also like, we're spending a lot of time on these beginning moments, and I don't see how I'm going to feel connected to this relationship. I don't feel like I don't understand or see how it's going to be able to develop enough for it to be believable for me and the rest of the time that we have. And unfortunately, that's what ended up happening. Like one day she's really upset, they go out, they run together as wolves, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay. I didn't have that feeling of like, okay, this is the moment where they're like gonna make it a thing. Like, because literally from the moment they first met, she was like sexually attracted to him and he could smell that on her, and of course he was reciprocating that, but it never seemed to go like above that for me. As far as feelings in this, I felt like it was just like, okay, well now they're sleeping together, so of course they're a thing. That's how it felt to me. And I think that's a major reason why I didn't connect to this as much, because there was a lot of that going on, especially with how guarded she was when she first came there, because she was just like, this is how I've been raised. And although she's an alpha herself, it's just like, you know, it's hard to get rid of habits that you've been raised with. It just seemed like it happened too quickly for me. Fortunately, I didn't completely believe that aspect of it, and it wasn't like a new all-time favorite. Like, I did still really enjoy it, but I can see myself kind of forgetting about this, and I wish that the author had made this like a full novel. I do still plan on reading the other 2 novellas in the series, but as far as this one, it got 4 stars for me. Okay, and then the final book that I have to talk about is Remote Control by Nydia Okorafor. So in the story, we're following this girl named Fatima, who's now known as Sankofa, and her touch brings death. She has pretty much been on her own since her family has died, except for this fox companion, as she's traveling by foot to find this item that fell from the sky but was taken from her when she was a kid. I finally picked this up, and boy am I happy I did. I don't know what it is, but Nydia Okorafor, from what I have read from her, has a way of putting together a full story in a novella. Now I do still feel like there were some things left out, but I think that was intentional, and I'm wondering if this is planned to be like a series like Binti was. I'm not quite sure, because I haven't heard anything about a sequel, but as far as this one, it did feel complete, although it was still left kind of open-ended. Honestly, I sat here thinking about this for a minute, trying to think about what I can really go through when talking about this, but honestly I just feel like it's best to just go into this blind and just go along for the ride with the story. The only thing that I have to say, like I just mentioned, which I might end up cutting out anyway, is that somehow Nydia Okorafor ends up having a way of making the world fully fleshed out and the characters be dimensional within such a short time span, or a short page count. This one did get 4.5 stars, not quite 5. I love this, and I could see myself rereading this multiple times, always getting something new out of it. And this just really makes me want to read more things by Nydia Okorafor, so I will try to make that happen throughout the year. That is everything that I had to talk about this month. Kind of a lot. Like I said, I'm still shocked that somehow I managed to read 57 things, books, mangas, novellas, whatever. 57 different things is a lot, and that's the most I have ever read in a single month, and mind blown. But I don't want to have to start another clip, so I'm gonna go ahead and end this here. If you've read anything, let me know what you thought about any of these books, if you have read them. If not, or if you don't want to respond to that, let me know some of the things that you got to throughout February. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, as well as subscribing if you have not already. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next one. Bye.